when asking your question. Chris, just give us your thoughts on making it to the quarterfinals.
Dream come true. It's tough to really put into words, but to be able to come out today and play the way that I did and just kind of take everything in. It's surreal. I can't really describe it. It'd be better if you guys asked questions. I think that might make things a little bit easier.
Hi, Chris. Howard Fendrich with the Associated Press. What aspect of all of this to you is the most surreal part or the hardest to believe?
I don't think there's one in particular. I think there's a few different ones. Everything from realizing that I have 2 credentials at Wimbledon for the rest of my life, to checking my phone and seeing my name as an ESPN alert, to realizing how much I disliked grass at the beginning of the grass court season, to now look at where I am. Like, there's just so many different ways I could go about it, but I just think the entire experience altogether has just been a whirlwind, and it's been, something that you dream about. But I think for me, I didn't really know if that dream would actually come true, and I'm sitting here in it now, so it's pretty cool.
Matt Futterman from the New York Times, for now. You were talking about this dream coming true just a moment ago, and you're talking about this sort of, the weirdness of it all. In 2 days, you're going to have to play in the quarterfinals against Daniil Medvedev. How do you get yourself into the mode of, I belong here. This is where I should be. This is a match. Not only do I want to win, but I think I can win, and here's how I'm going to do it.
I think I've done a pretty good job in the past, I'll say like 9 months, maybe around a year, around US Open time, of being able to just kind of separate everything and look at the next match as just the match, and not really considering the moment, not considering the round or the stage of the tournament, just realizing, hey, this is an opponent I have to play. So I think, it's going to be a little bit more difficult now, just because I check my phone. It's a bit nuts right now. It's crazy to see my social media feed that I'm just used to kind of going to, seeing it's a lot of me, and I'm just kind of like, what is this? This is weird. But at the end, I think I've been able to find a way to compartmentalize everything and realizing this is a pretty big moment, but then also saying like, hey, this is a tennis match that I need to play in a couple of days. So I'm not too worried about it. I think that, for today, I'm going to really enjoy this. I'm going to really, really enjoy it, and just kind of think back on it and realize, how surreal it is and how crazy it is. But when tomorrow comes, it's going to be another match. It's going to be me stepping on court. Could have been first round Wimbledon. Could have been second round. It's just so happened that we're going to be in the quarterfinals, which is a big stage. But at the same time, when we get out there, it's still just a tennis match. And I think at this stage of my career, I do a better job of looking at each match as just a tennis match and not considering the moment as much as I used to earlier in my career.
I was going to say, Chris, you seem to become something of an overnight sensation at the age of 27, which is remarkable and a testament to the way you play, the courage you show on court. How much of your approach to the game comes from your family, your background, the way you were raised to approach sport?
My family, we weren't a super big sports family. Like my dad got me into tennis because he liked tennis. He picked it up with his older brother. And then when my brother and I came along, it was just easy to kind of put us into tennis. But it's not like we came from a super long lineage of like high level athletes. It's just, I think it's more so, I think a lot of the people that I grew up around that have influenced me, I think have had a really strong impact on the way that I look at sports and I look at tennis, starting from Jermaine Jenkins, both of them moving on to my older cousin, Trey Eubanks, who actually played college tennis at Michigan State, was the only other player to play Division I tennis in my family. And up until my older brother did play Division I tennis and then went to me. Then I spent years and years around Donald Young, which I think played a huge impact on me and my success. And even now, being as close to Coco as I am, being good friends with Naomi. Like I'm around enough tennis players and just to be able to pick their brain and hear the way that they look at certain things. I think that has had a bigger impact on how I look at sport and how I look at tennis in my career, as opposed to just being so much on my family. I think my family's done a great job of kind of helping making me, I would say, more well-rounded outside of sport, just kind of try to be a good person. And from the tennis side, I think I've been fortunate to be around some really, really incredible people, some really incredible athletes. And I think that's had probably a larger influence, speaking specifically on the tennis, not as me as a person.
Chris, are you able to put into words what it is really like for you in the middle of a match? Is it easy, is it difficult not to get carried away with all the attention and the euphoria of being in this situation? Wimbledon is very different to Miami, and you know, you're in the middle of history as well and tradition. So what is it like specifically in the middle of a match for you? How do you handle that?
Yeah, the middle of a match at that point, it's just a tennis match, honestly. I don't think of any time in which I've been in the middle of any of my matches here in which I said, like, oh, wow, I'm down break point at Wimbledon, per se. It's just like, what am I going to do down break point? What's going to be the strategy to get me out of this situation, or what's going to be the strategy to help me close out this game? Like, it's not, you don't really focus on the place that you're at. You're more so focused on the opponent, what's been working, what hasn't been working throughout the course of the match. And that's kind of where your head goes. I haven't really thought too much about the location or the court. It's more so about what's going to work right now. And that's kind of where my mind stays throughout the course of a match.
Chris, Alex Spink from the Mirror. Congratulations. I'm just wondering if you're feeling a bit like an honorary Brit over here at the moment. You've had incredible support just a few days after knocking out the British #1.
Yeah, I think so. That's pretty fair to say. I think the fans here have really been behind me. Even in my match against Cam, obviously I knew going into it was going to be a tough atmosphere. The crowd, rightfully so, wanted Cam to win and backed Cam. But I did feel like they were very fair. I felt like when I had good moments, they applauded and they enjoyed good quality tennis. And I think since then, they've really gotten behind me this entire week. So I guess you could say, yeah, I do feel a little bit like an honorary Brit, and I hope they come out in the quarterfinals to show me a little bit more support.
What does it feel like when you've got the whole of Wimbledon backing you, wanting you to do well?
Yeah, I don't really know. That's a tough one to answer of exactly what it feels like. It feels great, obviously. You'd rather have the fans for you than against you. But yeah, I don't think hasn't really set in yet that, this many hundreds or thousands of people are coming out and they really want to see me do well. I think it's kind of an in the moment type thing based on the ebbs and flow of the match and how the crowd has been supporting the players. It's kind of something you feel then, but not as much outside of it, I would say.
Congrats, Chris. Well done. We played one of the greatest sportsmen in history in a documentary or film. Briefly, what was that like? But more importantly, if you could have an imaginary sit down with a great man, with Arthur Ashe, what do you think you'd talk about? What do you think you'd try and pick his brain? He won here. What are your thoughts about that?
The first part of the question. I'm sorry, the second. If I had that opportunity, I'd honestly just want to pick his brain on what he thinks of my game. That'd probably be the coolest thing to be able to say, like, hey, maybe you've seen me play. What do you think? Where are some areas I can improve? I know that you got a pretty big serve. You had a good forehand. You had a nasty backhand slice. Like, I try to do a little bit of that. You like it, you don't, and just to kind of get his honest opinion. But to be able to portray him, like you said, in that documentary was really cool. It was an experience, not just doing film, which was a bit different, something I'd never done before, but also having to do the research that I did, having to go back and watch a whole film to try to get the technique down, and also reading, and watching tons of interviews from him just to try to learn his demeanor, learn his perspective on things, his philosophy, how important education was. So many different things that it challenged me, but it was also super rewarding when I got to see the final project. So it was something that I take great pride in, and I'm excited that I was selected to be able to do it.
Hey Chris, Ava Wallace, The Washington Post. Who or what was it that got your dad into tennis? And then logistically, how are you and your team kind of adjusting to this long stay at a Grand Slam for the first time?
So, as I said, my older cousin played college tennis at Michigan State, and his father, my uncle, got into tennis as just a means to kind of socialize with some of his colleagues. I don't know the exact order. It may have been racquetball first and then tennis. And my dad, just wanting to have something to bond with his older brother, started playing racquetball together. And then my uncle said, you know what, you should try tennis. And that's kind of where it started. We just so happened to live in Atlanta, which was, I don't know if it was then, but I know it is now, like the largest tennis market in the US, like per capita. So there's tons of tennis courts, there's tons of tennis players, coaches, and everything. So it was pretty convenient of a sport to say, oh, maybe I should play tennis. My dad started to take lessons, and he ended up getting my brother into it, and then it just kind of went from there. The second part, what was it?
Just how are you and your team?
Oh yeah, we've had to change hotel checkout dates a couple times, but that's been about it. Everything else has pretty much stayed the same. We typically when I book the hotels, especially at slams, I maybe start. It's my second time actually being in the main draw on my own. I've had a couple wild cards before, but I'll typically say, let's book until Friday, just because the cancellation policies can be a little bit tough, and we'll see what happens. So we had that happen, moved it again to Monday, and then I believe yesterday or 2 days ago we said, let's just move it to next Friday, just to see. If we got to move it one more time, then we might just move it all the way to the end of the following week. But that's just that's really the only logistical change that's had to be made. Everything else has been pretty much the same.
Hi, Chris. Congrats. Rima Boulier from The National. You mentioned a bit earlier that this has been a whirlwind for you. I'm wondering, in the last 2-3 weeks, what's been the biggest lesson for you?
Biggest lesson? I guess that I like grass. Yeah, it's been a bit of a blur, if I'm being honest. Like between finishing Mallorca, the final on Saturday afternoon, and then getting here at Sunday at like 2 or 3 a.m., there still hasn't been that window of time to kind of process everything. It's just been, like I said earlier, just focusing on the next match. Okay, well, when I finished Mallorca, I knew that I played Thiago Monteiro first round. That's where my focus shifts. And then after that, move on to the next match. That's where my focus is. And then it's just kind of continued to go on from there. I haven't had the time to really kind of sit back and look and think about what has changed or what like you said, lessons that I've learned. I'm sure I will have time for it, but right now it's just kind of been like, oh, I finished this match. Okay, who's next? I didn't really check the draw that much. I knew the first two spots. I knew Thiago to play Nori. After that, I didn't really know O'Connell was next. I didn't know Stefanos would be next. So it's just kind of like, oh, what's next? Okay, let's just move on. So I haven't really had that time, but I definitely will at some point.
Hi, Tom Heberlein, SID News Agency in Germany. I have a little bit of a longer question. Do you still work as an analyst for a tennis channel?
Yeah, I do, and I plan on continuing to do so. It's a lot of fun. It's something that I enjoy, so it's definitely something I want to keep doing.
Question would be, of course, how would you rate your performance today, and how would you analyze your next opponent? And does it help you analyze your next opponents?
I think what helps analyze my next opponent is the fact that I played him a few months ago. That's probably going to be the biggest thing. Granted, different court, different surface, different conditions, but that'll probably be the biggest thing. And you asked the first one. What first part was?
How would you analyze your game today?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I played well when I needed to. I didn't feel like I served as well as I had in previous rounds. I think I was middle to late second set. I saw the stats come up, and I had only had one ace, and I'm like, man, it's been a bit of a dry spell for me. Usually, I'm able to produce a little bit more on the serve, but just the conditions were a bit tough when we got out there. The wind was kind of swirling. It was tough to really get comfortable. But like I say, in tennis, it's you just got to play the big point, play certain points better than others. And I think I was able to play well when I needed to in order to get the win. And I was just, and to me, that's a even more promising sign to say that, I can still win matches against high level opponents, even when I'm not just redlining the entire match, when I have a few ups and downs, but I'm able to lock in when I need to.
Coming into this tournament, what did you think the best possible performance would be for you? And what do you think it is now?
Tough question because I try not to put so much emphasis on I want to get to this round or I want to win this. I've done that before early in my career. Doesn't really work for me. Like I can't just set the goal of saying, oh, I want to, win a certain amount of matches because I feel like it builds a little bit of pressure. For me, when I go on court, I'm just, as long as I can go out there with a positive mentality and I know I'm going to just give it everything I have, and I'm kind of okay with it. I'm okay with whatever the result's going to be, as long as I can honestly say after the match, I tried to problem solve. I tried to do what I said I was going to do. It just didn't really go my way today, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, it helps when things are going well and you're able to win those big moments, but because your confidence continues to grow. So I didn't really set a goal of coming into here. I was just coming off the back of Mallorca, first title. I didn't know what to really expect. I knew my first round against Thiago was going to be tough. I said, man, he's beaten me on grass before. So, who's to say that just because I won in Mallorca, I'm going to come and beat him? I lost the first set and was able to rebound from there. But yeah, I try not to set the expectation on, certain amount of match wins or losses, whatever. I'm just saying, all right, at the end of the match, can I look back and say I did everything I was supposed to do and I gave it everything I had, and doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, okay, if I can live with that, win or lose, I'll take it. So.
Hey, Chris, you mentioned that you've asked advice of Coco and of Naomi. Can you talk a little bit about what kinds of tips or advice that they've given you?
I think the biggest thing, it's a common theme amongst both of them, is that they've been saying for a long time that they feel like I belong at this level, because for a long time I kind of questioned, again, whether or not I was consistent enough to play at this level really consistently. I knew I could come out on any match and maybe light it up and, could cause some guys some trouble, but I don't know if I really believed that I could put together match after match after match against quality opponents. And that's something that Coco's been telling me for a long time. Naomi even says the same thing. So I think that's kind of been the main thing of just reinforcing and instilling confidence to say, hey, you can play at this level. You just got to believe it. And when I'm around them, to hear them talk about their belief, it's a bit infectious. It does kind of rub off on you, because when they talk about, their goals or what they feel when they go on court, I feel a little bit like the odd man out, because I'm like, man, you guys are mentally different than I am. Like, you guys are so much more like locked in and confident when you step on the court. And I think it's slowly starting to kind of rub off on me, where when I step foot on the court, I was like, hey, I can play at this level. I belong at this level. I just got to go out here and actually believe it. And again, like, be okay with giving it everything I have, and whatever the result is, it is.
Thank you. Thank you.